The Republican race for the White House reaching new lows this week as accusations flew between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Earlier, I spoke with Senator Cruz about the increasingly bitter battle, but we began with the terror threat in the wake of the Brussels attacks. Senator, in the wake of the Brussels bombings, you issued a statement that said this, in part: we need to immediately halt the flow of refugees from countries with a significant al-Qaeda or ISIS presence. We need to empower law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized. What exactly were you or are you proposing?
Well, Shannon, good morning. It's good to be with you, and happy Easter today. You know, this past week, all of us mourned this terrible terrorist attack in Brussels. And we have seen these attacks occurring over and over again. This attack was not a lone wolf. It wasn't an isolated incident. This was part of a global jihad being waged by radical Islamic terrorism. It is a jihad being waged on Europe, being waged on Israel, and being waged on the United States of America. And for 7 years, President Obama and Hillary Clinton and this administration have been so bound up by political correctness, they've refused to acknowledge what it is we're fighting. They've refused even to name it. After every one of these attacks, the president does a national TV conference where he refuses to say the words radical Islamic terrorism. Instead, he lectures Americans on Islamophobia. Well, enough is enough. We need a commander-in-chief who will keep this country safe. You know, one of the consequences of the political correctness of this administration is they embrace policies that make no sense. Obama and Hillary Clinton both support bringing tens of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees to America, despite the fact that ISIS tells us they intend to infiltrate those refugees with jihadists coming here to kill us. And despite the fact that the FBI tells us they cannot vet those refugees to make sure they're not terrorists. We need a commander-in-chief who is focused on defeating radical Islamic terrorism, on utterly destroying ISIS, and on keeping America safe.
Okay, but how would that play out with patrols in Muslim neighborhoods? What are the practicalities of what that looks like?
Well, sure. What that looks like is proactive law enforcement. What that looks like is addressing the problem and engaging the problem, using every tool, law enforcement, using national security, using intelligence, using the military abroad to defeat the enemy. You know, there was a successful program in New York City that was started under Mayor Michael Bloomberg that did exactly this. It engaged cooperatively with the Muslim community, but it got involved to prevent radicalization, to prevent radical Islamic terror cells from forming, and to prevent any acts of terror before they're carried out. Now, unfortunately, liberal Democratic Mayor Bill de Blasio, when he got elected, one of the first things he did in a nod to political correctness is he disbanded that unit. That doesn't make any sense. We need to be going after where the threat comes from, and the threat comes from radicalization. You know, you look at Europe. Much of the cause of these terror attacks is the failed immigration policies in Europe over the decades, where they've allowed vast numbers of Islamic terrorists to come into Europe. They live in isolated locations where law enforcement often doesn't engage at all, and they're hotbeds for radicalization. It leads to these sorts of attacks. We can't become Europe. We can't follow their same mistakes, and we need our law enforcement to engage and to fight this enemy, which is Islamism. It's different from Islam. Islamism is a political and theocratic philosophy that commands its adherents to engage in jihad, to murder or violently convert infidels, which they mean anybody else, all of us, and to force us to live under Sharia law. And we've got to fight Islamism at every level. This administration is not doing that, and that is why we're seeing the rise of radical Islamic terrorism all over the globe.
Well, Senator, you know the president responded to your idea by invoking your father. Here's a bit of what he said.
I just left a country that engages in that kind of neighborhood surveillance, which, by the way, the father of Senator Cruz escaped for America, the land of the free.
Also this week, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton referenced your comments with respect to carpet bombing. Here's her take.
Proposing that doesn't make you sound tough. It makes you sound like you're in over your head.
Earlier this month, CNN had a poll asking who's best equipped to handle these issues of foreign policy. Former Secretary Clinton was atop the list. You came in fourth behind Trump and Sanders as well. So as a first-term senator, as the secretary suggested, are you in over your head on foreign policy?
Listen, I'll tell you who's in over their head, and it's Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and the entire Obama administration. The Obama-Clinton foreign policy is a manifest disaster. Every single region on earth, Shannon, has gotten worse. Our friends and allies, we've abandoned them. This has been the most anti-Israel administration we've ever seen. And we've shown weakness and appeasement to our enemies. You know, it's rich seeing Barack Obama attacking me when he just got back from going to a baseball game with the Castros, celebrating and toasting a communist dictator who tortures and murders his citizens, who oppresses them and who is rabidly anti-American, and who spreads terrorism throughout Latin America. As the president noted, yes, my father was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. So was my aunt. She was imprisoned and tortured by Castro's goons in Cuba. And yet what President Obama has done, what Hillary Clinton has done, what John Kerry has done, is sent billions of dollars to the enemies of America, billions of dollars to the Castros that they will use to increase their repression, increase spreading terrorism throughout Latin America, and over $100 billion to the Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran. That money will be used to fund Islamic terrorists that are coming to murder Americans, to murder Europeans, to murder Israelis. And it will be used to fund their nuclear program and their ICBM program, which is designed to murder millions of Americans. This policy of weakness and appeasement doesn't work. And I think the American people are tired of it. They're tired of the moralizing and lecturing. You notice Obama and Hillary seem more mad at me than they are at ISIS, than they are at the terrorists who are murdering us. We know of at least 2 Americans who were murdered in Brussels. There may be many more. There's still people missing. Our prayers are with them, but we need a president who will bring the full force and fury of the United States of America to defeating ISIS. Shannon, I'll tell you, if I'm president, we will utterly and completely destroy ISIS. We will carpet bomb them into oblivion using overwhelming air power. We will arm the Kurds on the ground. We will use our forces to defeat them. And we won't put our forces in combat with the rules of engagement that Obama is so fond of, that tie their arms behind their back, that make it impossible for them to fight and win. That is wrong and that is immoral. If and when we use military force, we will use it to win, to defeat our enemies with overwhelming force, and then we'll get the heck out. We won't engage in nation buildings, but rather we'll keep America safe.
Senator, it was a bit like combat on the campaign trail this week. It took a very nasty personal turn. I want to start first with a Facebook and Instagram ad from an anti-Trump super PAC called Make America Awesome. They published a picture that essentially was a nearly nude photo of Melania Trump. Mr. Trump has said that you are lying about knowing about it or having anything to do with it. He threatened to, quote, spill the beans on your wife, Heidi. Did anyone within your campaign, you, anyone else connected to you, coordinate in any way or have communications with that group? Did you know anything about the ad?
Not remotely. It was a group. I don't know the person who's involved. As far as I know, I've never met them. I've never spoken to them. They're completely disconnected from our campaign. The ad they put out was deplorable. And as soon as I saw it, I denounced it and said it was wrong. But it wasn't us. You know what? There are a whole lot of people in America who disagree with Donald Trump. And he used that as an excuse. The fact that someone else who I don't know and have no involvement with used a deplorable ad, he used that as an excuse to go after my wife, Heidi, to go after my family, to attack her directly. And not only did he threaten her directly, but then the next day he sent a really nasty tweet juxtaposing a bad picture of Heidi with a good picture of his wife, and I guess bragging that his wife is so attractive. Listen, I have never once said any negative word about Melania or any member of his family. I don't intend to. Melania is a lovely woman. Everything I've seen, she seems to be a terrific mother. Attacking spouses and children is off limits. It has no place in politics. And sadly, what Donald has done, when he gets scared, listen, particularly on foreign policy, Donald is out of his depth. He doesn't know, he doesn't understand these issues. One of the reasons he was so scared this week is this past week, Donald called publicly for effectively withdrawing America from NATO. Now, that is a catastrophically foolish proposition. Abandoning Europe, withdrawing from the most successful military alliance of modern times makes no sense at all. If Donald were president, he actually did what he said he would do, withdraw from NATO. It would hand a massive victory to Putin, a massive victory to ISIS. ISIS would be dancing in the street at the weakness and isolationism of Donald Trump. Now, the day after he calls for withdrawing from NATO, this Brussels terror attack occurs. Brussels is, of course, where NATO is headquartered. And so his lack of understanding on foreign policy, his lack of ability and readiness to protect this country was evident. And so Donald did what he always does. He tried to find a way to change the subject. He hasn't campaigned for a week. He's been hiding in Trump Tower, but late at night, he sends tweets attacking my wife, attacking Heidi. It is inappropriate. It is wrong. It is frankly disgusting to see a candidate attacking the spouse of another. And it is a sign of just how scared Donald is right now, because he doesn't want to discuss the substance. In fact, Shannon, that's why he's afraid to debate, why he refuses to debate, because when he debates, his lack of understanding of the challenges facing America becomes evident for everyone to see.
All right, let's move on to the National Enquirer. This is what they say, alleging, quote, private investigators are digging into at least 5 affairs Ted Cruz supposedly had. All right, you and I are both lawyers. I've read this article in full. They use the word supposedly a lot, may have, allegedly, apparently. I don't see any concrete allegations, but would you like to respond?
Yes, look, this story is garbage. It is tabloid smear, and it came from Donald Trump and his henchmen. You know, the only person quoted on the record there is Roger Stone, the chief political advisor to Donald Trump. And this is the kind of lies and sleaze. They did have a parting of ways. They did have a parting of ways. So we don't know exactly what the relationship is, but yes, he has been linked with Mr. Trump. But Shannon, they haven't had the parting of ways. Roger Stone remains the henchman, the hatchet man, the enforcer for Donald Trump. He's pushing these attacks, and by the way, he's been pushing them for many, many months online. These are complete made-up lies. They're garbage. But, you know, it's indicative of just how low Donald Trump will go.
Okay, but I want to make sure that we include what his response was on whether he's linked to this or not. In a Facebook posting on Friday, he said, I have no idea whether or not the cover story about Ted Cruz in this week's issue of the National Enquirer is true or not, but I had absolutely nothing to do with it, did not know about it, and have not as yet read it.
Well, look, that's very convenient to say, except the article quotes Roger Stone, who organized and planned Donald Trump's presidential campaign. And I'll note, David Pecker, the CEO of National Enquirer, is a close friend of Donald Trump. The National Enquirer has endorsed Donald Trump for president. And this entire campaign, they've done 2 things. 1, they praise Donald Trump at every turn. And 2, they spread lies and smears and attacks on every one of his opponents. And this is garbage. Look, we've got real problems in America. There are right now, people are hurting, their wages are stagnating, people are out of work, they want to see jobs. And what does Donald Trump want to do? He doesn't want to talk about these issues. He has no answers for how to bring jobs back to America. Donald Trump has no idea how to do that. He has no answers for how to keep America safe for radical Islamic terrorism. So instead, he attacks my wife, he attacks my family, he goes to garbage and sleaze and lies. It's categorically false. And it has no business in politics. This is why people are disgusted in politics. And we need a leader who is prepared to address the real challenges facing this country. You know, I spent the last several days campaigning in Wisconsin. You know what the people there are interested in? How do we bring back our jobs? How do we see wages rising again? I spent a lot of time talking about my positive economic program, to repeal every word of Obamacare, to pass a simple flat tax and abolish the IRS, to lift back the EPA and the federal regulations that are killing small businesses, to stop amnesty and illegal immigration and end sanctuary cities and end welfare benefits for those here illegally. And Shannon, we do all of that, we will see millions and millions of high-paying jobs, new jobs, manufacturing jobs, coming back from China, coming back from Mexico. We'll see wages going up. We'll see young people coming out of school with 2, 3, 4, 5 job opportunities. That's what Americans are interested in, is a leader who knows how to solve these problems, who has a real and positive agenda. Donald doesn't have that.
Senator, we've got to leave it there. Thank you for joining us on Fox News Sunday. Happy Easter to you and your family as well. We'll see you on the campaign trail.
Happy Easter and God bless.